Okay, so Trent, the topic today that we want to talk about is getting started in the outdoor recreation field, especially for newly graduated college students.
Sure.
Because we had a couple people write us in and tell us that they, were about to graduate and they're not really sure where to get their start and what to do, and they wanted to talk about it. So that's kind of the theme. You don't have to stick to that, but we need to hit that at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good jumping off point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Broadly, because one of the people who tweeted us about it, they seem like she's more of like a blogger as well and everything like that too, but gets what we're doing and wanted to kind of understand that bigger product of it all. I think in my brain, what I'm really interested in is just the program itself, at the university that you run and everything, because I listened to Keegan talk about it all, and I really love the idea. Like when he said like you wanted to come on or that we could get you on, I was just like, wow, that's like kind of a slam dunk in a way, because it's like, here is a guy who's gone through the program, and then now he's doing it, like he's putting all of it to use,
right,
and everything. The only person I know from the program, so it's like, I don't know how many people are putting it to use right now who graduated from it, and then I'm like, this is a great opportunity for Trent to show other students in the program now, like, hey, here's the guy who just did it.
You can,
like,
you can do something with it,
And then so I almost wonder, like, did you guys kind of have an expectation for how people would use it, how people would use the program?
Yes and no. I definitely envisioned there being students, and I guess from the beginning I thought maybe 50% of these students are going to try to really do something in the outdoor rec field. So many of our students, I think, are honestly doing the program because they want the leadership capacity as well. And I've always tried to market it like we're learning adventure leadership and adventure education leadership by and through the program. So what I mean by that is, hopefully you can come out of this and you're prepared to go be a leader in some organization that's doing this kind of work.
Right.
But also within this program, you are learning to be a leader in general through adventure activities.
Right.
So not necessarily. I'm just as glad to have the kid that wants to go to law school after he's done with our program. And we've had that. Or get an MBA, and we've had that too. But, yeah, absolutely. I would expect us to be able to have students be prepared to go work in the outdoor rec industry somewhere in some capacity. And there's others that are doing different things. I've got graduates working at backcountry.com in sales.
Okay.
I've got graduates in a number of camp ministry type settings. That's probably the single area that we have the most. Got graduates that decided they wanted to live in their van too for a few years. So
each their own.
More power to them. I like my house, but I guess the hashtag van life's got its draw. So it's definitely been both. And we've just recently kind of made a slight shift in the curriculum, which won't actually it's now approved and it's all rolling forward, but it's not going to come online until starting this coming fall. And we are now offering some different emphasis areas within the Adventure Education and Leadership curriculum, which is the new name, by the way. It's Adventure Education and Leadership. We are no longer merely a facet of the recreation program.
Oh, wow. Okay, so your own thing.
Major.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So we've got a wilderness therapy. We call it outdoor behavioral health care. We've got an outdoor discipleship and ministry emphasis.
Wait, you doing wilderness therapy now?
Yeah, we're working with the social work department.
That is awesome, because that's kind of what my wife wants to start getting into. Because there's nothing in Kentucky too.
It is a void.
Yeah,
it is an absolute void, and the market will bear it.
And that's what Nick wants to do too. He wants to study that also. There's nothing.
And I mean, it's like you just look at places like anywhere west, the Front Range and west. I mean, every state has a state-run program. Go to Utah, and there's 30 organizations running it as private businesses. North Carolina's got state programs, New England, but we're always sort of the last people to get on any sort of outdoor or sort of cutting-edge adventure bandwagon here in Kentucky. I guess the Midwest as a whole, which we're kind of stuck between the South and the Midwest. But anyway. So then we'll also have an outdoor recs, which is sort of what we've always done, and then an environmental studies. So those four emphasis areas are within the program now. And really they're all just collaborations with other departments.
Right.
So except for the outdoor rec one. We're keeping that in-house. So hopefully that's going to continue to allow students to kind of do a little bit more specialization in exactly what they're interested in, and all those that are collaborations with other departments are designed to transition them very seamlessly if they want to go ahead and get the double major. Because I mean, as we know, Asbury requires a certain number of credits anyway, so why do 40 credits of elective when you can just go ahead and get a double major?
Right.
So I really envision, the wilderness therapy students going ahead and completing that social work degree. Maybe some of them even going on and getting their MSW, and that's going to set them up if they do want to do wilderness therapy. I mean, now they can become a licensed counselor.
Yeah.
Once they've got that MSW, and they want to go through that process, and having that counselor credential is going to allow you to be more than just the field guide in some of those therapy programs, things like that. So yeah, hopefully it continues to grow, and people are continuing to use it in neat ways.
Yeah.
So we're recording, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I just totally forgot that you can turn that on. But I feel like I should introduce Trent for anybody who doesn't know who Trent is, because, well, we already are halfway into this. But Trent runs the not Adventure Leadership Program anymore. It's Adventure Education and Leadership.
Yeah,
right?
That's the name of the major.
That's the name of the major.
We're still the Center for Adventure Leadership.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't changed that part of the name yet.
Gotcha. Well, Trent runs that and actually created the curriculum for it, and was the program that I went through when I was at Asbury, and it was really well done, and we were, really prepared us for a job in the outdoor recreational field, I'd say. And so that's why we have him here today. He's, taught me a whole lot about being outside, is definitely a mentor of mine, and we're really happy to have him here.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks.
What I really like, do you want a drink, by the way? Want some water?
I might get water in a minute.
Like drinking here.
Well, he offered me coffee, and I was like, man, if I drink, I'm too old for that. If I drink coffee this time,
we dry.
I'll be up till 3 a.m.
Yeah, well, what I really liked what you were saying, which makes a lot of sense because Keegan comes out of it, it's because Keegan's whole thing is character development as well, too, and so I really like that, your program, although you think it would be cool if people did maybe what Keegan's doing and did an outdoor business or something like that, the ultimate goal is really just to build them up in those fields of character and leadership and everything else. What's been kind of the cool ways of seeing the growth in the students do it? Because you kind of say you see 50% go one way, 50% go into other fields, and character wise, how do you see them going?
Oh man, I mean, a lot of it is accelerating the same thing that's going to happen to most people when they're 4 years in college, right? I mean, ideally we all grow up a little bit while we're in school,
right?
Especially at a place like Asbury University. And I've always thought of our mission really being pretty similar to, what the mission of Asbury is in general, just to prepare people to be leaders in the cause for Christ. And if we can do that in the outdoor industry, then even better. But yeah, I mean, for me, adventure education in particular is perfectly suited to that, right? Because we are fundamentally challenging people, pushing people outside of their comfort zones. That's what we want to do. We want to put people in situations where the outcomes are unknown, and that's how we define the word adventure. And we just don't get a lot of that in our society today. The most unknown thing is whether I'm going to beat this level on whatever video game I'm playing right now, or what fast food restaurant I'm going to go to for dinner tonight. The unknowns in our lives are not very stressful. They're not really forcing us out of any kind of comfort zone. So to be able to take people that really want to get into that at a higher level and develop leadership through that, I've always just kind of been experiential learning fits my model perfectly. I want to put people in situations where the consequences of their actions really affect them, if that makes sense. We pad the world so much, we protect people, and you hear people talk about nature deficit disorder, or just helicopter parenting, or all these different things that are kind of rampant in our society. The denaturing of society, one of my friends was saying. So we get them outside, so we get them connected, and that can have a spiritual aspect or not. We want to have one as a Christian university, and maybe it's spiritual for anyone, but we have a Christ-centered spiritual aspect to it for us. And then we want to put them in situations where they have to make choices, and those choices have real consequences. And that can be as simple as if you're hiking on the trail and you're overconfident in your ability to navigate. Keegan was saying he's going to go teach some people to use a map and compass here in the next couple of weeks. and you make the wrong decision, and you take your team 2 miles in the wrong way, and those people are genuinely pissed off at you now. We don't have to pretend that that's for real.
And you can't skirt that responsibility. You're forced to take responsibility for that action because it's so blatantly in your face.
It's right there. And so now we have to grow from that. We have to learn from that. And what do we do now? And so adventure just creates those scenarios all the time. And people are going to grow, but by going through it instead of talking about it theoretically. So that's really what I think, and just the nature of the beast does for us.
And people are going to get sick of hearing this because this is like literally the exact same things we were talking about last week. We were talking about our relationships in nature and how it challenges you, and it breeds character just through the adventure, the risk, the positive stress.
I mean, resiliency. I mean, just so many of these things. I mean, it's amazing how that first backpacking trip, every kid is cold and miserable from the bug bites, and by the third one, you're like, oh yeah, I got bug bites.
It's not so bad.
This isn't bad. At least it's not raining all day. It only rained half the day today, or whatever, Perspective. I guess it's perspective.
That's what we say.
What I find so awesome about that model too is, especially if someone's wanting to go into business, if someone's wanting to go into anything, just life in general, you can allow them to just mess up horribly. Like you said, you can allow them to go off like 2 miles. You can allow them to go up this hill when they should have gone all the way over here, follow that valley instead. And they can look at it and be like, oh my goodness, like, what are we going to do? You can allow them to just like horribly pack the food and like make it completely wrong, where by like the last day they're like eating crackers or something. You can do all these fun things. Whereas out in life, like, it's so hard to allow people to screw up that much.
And it's also really frowned upon because we're such a productive, productive-centered society. It's like if you're not producing and not doing things the right way, you're bad. You're doing it wrong. But when you're out in the field, it's like you learn. It's part of it.
We absolutely have a fear of failure in our culture. But it turns out failure is how humans learn. So that fear of failure has produced a lack of learning. And a lack of character, a lack of people of strong character. And we just need more of it, I think.
But I'd also argue with that, it's not just like a fear of failure, but it's also a failure to have consequences for your actions too. Because, like we grow up, there's so many safety nets for everything. And also, like, it's so easy for people to screw up and blame anything else, society, the government, whatever, and you don't take responsibility for things that happen to you. But when you're out in nature and it's just you and the only person you have to rely on is you, well, when something goes wrong, who's to blame? You can't, your list of people to blame has gone down. It's narrowed, like, very much,
Yeah, it gets very focused really quickly. No, and I agree with that. I mean, definitely a lack of responsibility as well goes into that. And I don't know where it starts. We do a lot of social psychology theory in the adventure world, but I'm not a social psychologist.
Yeah, it's not my job to figure that out.
But it's definitely there.
Well, that's what I hope to figure out.
That's right.
Because, with our program that we're wanting to do, it's like we're going to start off with Keegan's after-school program curriculum and everything, and then I'll be graduated next year, and then I'll have, like, my years of supervision and doing some actual work. And then by that time, hopefully like 5 to 10 years, we'll be able to start putting like all that the whole time. I want to be like using all my knowledge of like psychology and everything else to funnel into the curriculum and to the program. And so finally, when I'm a licensed counselor and I have more experience, we can start doing a lot of that stuff a lot more with it.
We can officially make it like a family, counseling program.
And then you can start using the word therapy legitimately.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I don't know if you know, like, one of our other full-time people that works at the university is, she probably went through the same program you're in at the seminary.
Kara,
and she's a counselor. She's still in, like, that period that you're talking about between, like, graduating and having the eons of time, and she just talks about constantly how much they flow into each other. They're the same thing.
They're the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Because I remember any like backpacking trip I've ever gone on, especially if there's an instructor there, the whole time it's just like, it's almost like a counseling session with these people, of them like letting you do things. It's like experiential therapy the entire time that you're with them. I think to keep on track with the idea of going into the outdoor business, I think, what do you think it is in your program that prepares people so much for that? Because you can do like, well, this is how you set up a business plan. This is how you set up this. This is how you set up that. This is how you create a logo. But with you guys focusing so much on character, I wonder if that's the most important thing you think it takes to go into it, or what do you think it is?
I mean, we focus a lot on, personal growth, character development, leadership development. We focus a lot on technical aspects of things. I guess for me, one of the major things in this field is being a good risk manager. You got to have solid technical skills to do that, right? And anybody that wants to work in an outdoor industry is going to have to be a good risk manager. They're going to have a short career. Yeah. So, I mean, what I really try to focus on is I try to have every course, even if it's a classroom type class, like be very practical in focus. And they're not all called practicums, but we try to just get our students on trips with other people. I mean, every university in the country leads trips for other undergrads, and students can get awesome experience doing that. I don't know many other schools that operate as a guiding and outfitting service for the general public like we do, and let our students either co-lead or lead outright those trips.
Right.
And that level of experience with a real paying client, and that ability to just the client care that you can learn in that setting that you're not ever going to learn till you get out on the field otherwise, I think has given them a step ahead. Yeah. And, at the end of the day, in the outdoor world, from a business perspective, outside of figuring out how to market, the business isn't that hard to run. You just got to make more money than you're spending, and it's pretty simple. We're not moving stuff around in the sense that some other businesses are. We don't have to have as much infrastructure, backside web systems. I mean, we can have pretty simple web systems. I mean, reservation software is pretty easy to download and pretty easy for anybody that can operate a laptop to work. And so really it comes down to that client care and that personal experience. 'Cause this is what we want them to do anyway, right? Like we want to connect with people and get them outside. And so being able to do that skill well, I think is the thing that really could set you apart. And, if there's 5 whitewater rafting companies on said river, and they all know the same rapids, they've all got similar technical skills, but the ones that the people just love their guide as well are the ones that they're going to come back to over and over and tell their friends about.
Yeah, it's like having that great, it's like having that great guy for your business. Like everyone has a guy, and your guy is going to treat you well. Your guy is going to look out for you with that risk management stuff. Your guy's only going to let you go so far before they help you back. Mm-hmm. And if you have a client who trusts you that much, as you would have to trust a guide out in the wilderness, that'd be humongous.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for people that are thinking about getting a job in outdoor recreation, what I'm hearing you say, like your program really focuses on step 1 is know your job. Like be good at it. Be good at the technical skills. Be good at the risk management, because if you're not good at that stuff, you simply just can't work in the outdoor field. So that's step number 1, is get good at what you plan to do. Sure. And then we said the second thing you mentioned is have good character. Be the guy that they want to come back to. Be the person that's trustworthy and responsible, and that people are going to want to recommend their friends to, and want to come back and use again. So that's good too. What else though? Because at some point, just being good at something and then being, a person of character, is that enough?
Yeah. Actually getting the job, right? That's putting the rubber to the road. And that's always the challenge, especially around, here where we are in central Kentucky. I mean, we just have the outdoor recreation industry is exploding here, but it's like I said before, I think it's 5 to 10 years behind where it is everywhere else.
Right.
So that first job is always kind of the hardest one to get. And some things that are true of getting a job anywhere, I think, are true of this field. It's about the connections, who you know, not what you know. A lot of that stuff really does matter. So when you're out there getting good at, whitewater kayaking or rock climbing or whatever sport it is you want to instruct or teach or guide, be meeting people all the time.
Network.
And that's true of any business anywhere.
Right.
It always matters. Like, you need that guy in every possible area. Like, I got this thing. This is my guy for that.
Right.
And so I have the huge advantage of, I've been running outdoor programs in Kentucky for 20 years now, 20 plus years. And And I've just gotten over the years to know people in just all these different areas. You know, any outdoor business in the state, I probably know somebody that either used to work there and run it or does now, or the owners and things like that. So lean on the connections that your connections have as well. I think that's really important. And I try to always, if students need a recommendation or a reference, that's one thing, but like really like, hey, if you want to do this job, let me say go to this company and let me call my guy there and say, hey, watch for this application to come in. So that's true in any job market, right? The thing that I think is really unique to the outdoor industry is, and it might just be different than anywhere else, and I always say this, and it's kind of funny sounding, but I think it's really true. I just think about some of the past students I have that work as, camp directors now, or as, full-time managers of whitewater rafting companies, or, are managing climbing gyms, or even have full-time gigs in climbing gyms. Everybody starts out part-time. And they all just sort of showed up one day and started working, and then they were awesome. And then eventually that company realized if this person is not here, things aren't going to be as good, and they made a job for them. I mean, Ramon is the perfect example of that right now, right? Ramon was in school with Keegan, and literally Ramon's like, man, I think I'm going to move home to Louisville, and I was kind of like, why are you going to go back to Louisville, man? He's like, well, I got a free place to live, I'm just going to find some work, and I'm not sure what I want to do. And Ramon's, an ecology guy, a biology guy, but he's also an outdoor guy. And I said, man, I've got a guy in Louisville that's running a forest preschool and works at a nature preserve. I think you guys are just going to hit it off for some reason. And so I called my buddy Ryan.
Oh, I know that guy.
Yeah. So I was climbing with Ryan today. And I said, Ryan, man, I need you. Is it cool if I give you, do an email connection? And I called Ramon. Hey, I'm going to do an email connection. I didn't really ask him. He didn't have an option. And so all I did was I sent an email to both of them. I said, hey, I think you guys' interests are going to line up. Mm-hmm. You should really connect here. Here's a few points that I think you're both going to find you have some similar thinking on, and you happen to live in the same town.
Right.
Go. And, it's been 8 months, and Ramon emails me the other day, and he says, Mr. Trent, I got a job. Ryan hired me full-time. Which I already knew, because Ryan said, dude, I'm going to hire Ramon. I'm going to give him a contract offer. And Ryan was like, oh, yeah, well, I can just take volunteer time right now. We don't have the funds.
Right.
But Ramon showed up, and he made himself so indispensable to them that they were like, we have to find a way to keep this guy here.
Wow.
And I got a friend that's a manager of a whitewater rafting company in another state. And it's the same thing. He was just guiding for the summer.
Right.
And he stuck around, and he just did anything that needed to be done. And he did it better than all the other people. And they were like, we got to give you a job. We have to keep you. They want you there because all of a sudden you're making their life easier. You're making money for them, or whatever the case may be. And that's you can do that in the outdoor field. You can go work at a summer camp with no plans of ever having a full-time career there. And be that person that they're like, we have to figure out how to keep them all year. Even if we put them on maintenance crew for a couple off seasons, just to keep them around until we can build that perfect program director job for them.
That's such good advice. Start small and just earn it.
Yeah,
earn it. Yeah,
just go be indispensable.
Yeah,
and that's what I want our students to be. Is I want them to be indispensable when they get out of here.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that was a little bit of an advice. You said it way better than what I had heard it before. But yeah, when I was thinking about, there's no counseling, outdoor counseling around here, wilderness therapy or anything like that. I was like, how do I do that? And someone told me, work at a place, make yourself pretty much like that, and let them know, hey, this is what I really want to do. And if you're good enough, if you're a really good counselor, eventually they'll be like, yeah, let's try it out. You seem reasonable enough. You seem you're a great counselor.
Right.
We trust you. We think this would be awesome. They're just sometimes waiting for you to come along.
Right.
To be able to give you that job or to be able to give you that position.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that you mentioned Ramon, too, because he actually helped me write the environmental protection unit of the curriculum.
Right.
He just came over here one day and we wrote it together, and he's like, hey, if you need me to come help teach, we'll do that. That dude.
The people that are passionate about it are the ones that are going to stick with it.
Yeah.
And
what a great guy.
And at the end of the day, as well, I think it's kind of hilarious, just this idea that, what other field can you really do that in, and just go be excellent? And I'd guess 50% of the people that are in some sort of full-time gig that didn't just decide to get in alone and start a business one day in the outdoor rec industry nationwide, it started like that for them. It was some seasonal job, and they were so good that whoever the manager or owner was, I can't lose this person. I have to find out how to keep them.
Right.
So, yeah. And the other thing is, learn to rock climb if you want to get a job right now, because rock climbing gyms...
It's trendy.
they're trendy, and
It's
the growth chart, it's just going to go up. Like,
Right.
they're only going to explode even more. Like, people keep thinking, oh, it's going to burst, it's going to burst. Right now, there's no end in sight. I mean, for the expansion and
Invest in rock climbing.
When my wife and I, we lived out in Yosemite for like 6 months doing a Christian ministry with the national parks, and yeah, obviously climbing's everywhere out there. And then my hometown is in southern Illinois, where you never hear of rock climbing really. You know, like there's a little tiny state park, you know, that people go maybe hiking through and everything else. And it hasn't been until just recently where I'll tell people like, yeah, I could go rock climbing and all that stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, I heard about rock climbing. Like, that would be an awesome thing to do. Like, but there's nothing around here. And yeah, it's like kind of what you said before. Like, it's slowly making its way here. And now is the time to really jump into that and get good at those skills.
Yeah, and I mean, especially that indoor scene, because every city with 100,000 or more people is going to have a full-service gym in the next few years. If you want a business model, I think right now, and you can find an investor, go find one that doesn't have one yet and open it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, because we've always had the outdoor climbing in Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky. I mean,
Right.
obviously the Red River Gorge is phenomenal, world-class rock climbing. But beyond that, and especially like southern Illinois, there are some crags in southern Illinois. But yeah, I mean, just like, it's amazing how many people I talk to. You know, I had a student today that grew up in kind of this area, the Lexington area, and they were like, so people really come from all over the world to climb the Red River Gorge?
Right.
All
I'm
over
like,
the
yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like,
they
it's
do.
the most visited rock climbing area in the world right now. Like, more than, I mean, they call Miguel's Pizza the Camp 4 of the East for a reason. People are wearing Miguel shirts in Sayus, France, and Catalonia, Spain.
Yes.
Yeah, people in Yosemite talked about
Oh
it.
yeah, they know
When they
it.
heard we were
Everybody
moving
knows.
out here, they were like, you have to go to the gorge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
and
have to go.
it's
We'll come
all
visit you.
it's all the rage for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think also you think maybe, so I think it sounds like a lot about passion. Finding like what it is that you're passionate about. Maybe you're not passionate about outdoors at all. Like you said, maybe you really want to be in like management. Maybe you want to be, you know, a paper pusher. Maybe you want to do something like that. So definitely the passion thing. You think it also comes about like if you want to get started in the outdoor industry, maybe a lot of people are trying to bring in that traditional rock climbing gym, the traditional stuff. Do you think maybe trying to find like something special to bring to the table? Because like my wife and I, we realize like, wow, there's tons of outdoor recreational stuff here. There's tons of that stuff going on. Obviously the counseling stuff's new in a lot of ways with the counseling in wilderness. But then I also thought, well, what if we had like a nonprofit gym? You know, that way you have people coming in from like poor neighborhoods who can't afford to go rock climbing at some of these gyms, you know? Like, and whatnot, like I can barely afford to go rock climbing at some of the gyms if I wanted to.
Absolutely.
Let alone that. And so in my thinking, I'm just like, yeah, like start up like a nonprofit place or whatever for people to be able to come to and, you know, provide that other stuff. Do you think just finding those like niches or those other things can really be helpful for starting in outdoors?
Yeah, I mean, any time you can find a niche that has a market or has a need and try to fill that need. I think a lot of it comes down to like, what are you motivated by? You know, if you're motivated about getting, you know, young people or, you know, underserved communities or something into the outdoors, okay, we get you're probably not going to monetize that at a high level.
Yeah.
But there are people that have a philanthropic mindset that are going to be willing to invest in something like that if you do have a nonprofit organization doing things like that. And those things absolutely exist. You know, like we always say, there's nothing new under the sun, but you can always tweak it, right? You can always make it better, make it different. So finding that niche market, I think, is going to be huge. Being just fully prepared. I mean, if you want to work in the outdoor industry, I tell people all the time, like, be prepared to love your job, not the money you make from it. Like,
Yeah.
We're not in this field. I guess that goes back to passion. You know, you're not in this field because you're going to get rich.
Right.
I don't think there's very many people getting rich in the outdoor rec world. I mean, maybe the guy that owns Waltopia. I don't know. But or somebody that owns, you know, maybe some of the big gear companies that are producing, you know, kayaks or you know, equipment and stuff like that. Our carpenter bee friend here is very friendly.
Special guest.
Hello.
Well, and I guess if you're also just really passionate about it too, like, yeah, I guess after a while you really won't care about the money. I mean, there's world famous rock climbers who live in vans.
Live in vans.
You know, obviously like Alex Honnold's all the talk. now he's like the superstar of it all. And yeah, he's just like the most simple guy in the world.
Honnold's doing all right, and maybe 5 other people by
Yeah.
what we would probably by modern American standards might call upper middle class.
Right.
Because even Honnold's not rich, and he's got a foundation. You know?
Exactly.
Right.
I don't think anybody out there is getting truly rich off
Right.
of rock climbing. Sharma owns a bunch of gyms. He does pretty well, I'm sure. I bet Adam Ondra. But all these guys still, they're not making what the 1% is out there, and they're never going to. But they have a passion for it, right?
That's what it's about.
Or if we get into the the whitewater world, or even just like around here, we've got. I think there's a lot of opportunities just kind of move in a direction of just bringing in some of the natural history of our area as well. We've got this big equine thing, right? There's obviously a market for that. But we still have, we have some pretty cool stuff going on in Central Kentucky that a lot of people don't know about. There's a lot of cool cultural history, natural history around here. If you can find a niche and figure out something that you're good at, and then just figure out how to get people to come participate in it with you. And, obviously we talked about therapy being a big area and something you're interested in, and I think that market's only going to grow in this area. It just seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
We can decrease our overhead by how much? By taking kids out in the woods to do our therapeutic programming?
Yeah. Right.
Or and then we talk about, from our perspective, summer camps, whether those are secular or faith-based camps, that's a market that's kind of been around forever and has made a resurgence in the last 15 years. And then, obviously, the environmental side of things is only going to continue to expand as well. I think we're going to continue to see a world in which we need more and more people. And I don't know if this is therapeutic or not, but we need more and more people to be making sure that everybody understands that there is a connection between our continued existence as a species and the ecological health of the earth around us.
Right.
And at some point, we've got to decide if we're going to rely on technology to solve that problem, or if we're going to decide that maybe technology can't solve it entirely, and we're just going to have to back off on some things. But somebody's got to be doing that education for everybody's good. And at the end of the day, also, people just need to recreate. People need to get out and get off the couch, get away from their job, whatever it is, even if you're not trying to do a leadership development program or team building program.
Right.
So find that niche, figure out what you can offer, get some insurance, and then go take people out there. So.
Right.
I think a good thing to talk about too, now that we've talked about how to get started, is give us an example, Trent. How did you get your start in outdoor recreation in the field and wind up at Asbury creating an amazing program that many students are going through now?
A lot of luck.
Yeah.
So I went to Asbury, actually. I graduated in 2003. Back then we just had a recreation major, which was what I majored in. Bounced around between a few other majors, and kind of that's where I landed. Wanted to work in the outdoor field in some way. Spent my summers as a raft guide and bicycle tour guide while I was in college, and really enjoyed that. Got a lot of good client care experience, a lot of good risk management experience. But also, I think being a raft guide just taught me the just plain old-fashioned hard work side of the outdoor industry. And we do a lot of hurry up and wait in this industry, but you have to. You just got to work your tail off so that you can cut up and get laid back when you can too. Got married right after I got out of school here at Asbury. I waited around about a year for my fiance to graduate, and we had this plan to just move to Colorado and see what happened. So I got a job with the ministry out there. Initially, it was a summer gig, and with the potential to turn it into a year-round thing, but it was like a support-raising one, so like they didn't really have a ton of skin off their back for that. Really loved the ministry. It was a great experience. Some stuff kind of went down, and my wife and I decided to move back here to Kentucky, and I'll be honest, I had a business plan ready to roll. I just wanted to mow grass.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for me, really, I'm pretty sure I'd just be happy as long as I'm not stuck inside all day.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like I can mow grass. That's what I did in college. I worked on golf courses and worked for the physical plant. And the position that at Asbury that I initially started at happened to open up just then.
Oh, really?
And I applied for it. Was underqualified, but I still knew a lot of people, which surprisingly I think should have been a hindrance to me getting the job, because they knew me as well and my antics. But so started out as the coordinator for adventure programs there at Asbury in 2006. figured I'd maybe work there 5 years. Decided to do a master's degree later in venture education, and that's when, after I got that, is when we started the academic side. So when we started the academic program, they just changed my title to Director of the Center for Adventure Leadership, and then this year I became also a full-time faculty. So now I have essentially it's all one contract, but it's a dual role contract. So pretty fortunate. Been really blessed to be here, and for the timing to kind of work out. Some of those things in the rearview mirror, it's pretty obvious where the Lord was working. You just don't see it in front of you. But also trying to really apply the things that I learned along the way, whether it was when I was guiding in the summers, or whether it was what I learned with the ministry, the outdoor ministry that I did in Colorado, and some of the mistakes that were made there, because it was a phenomenal ministry model, but it didn't work logistically or as a business for some reasons. I don't think it was any individual's fault or anything, but trying to learn from those things and not repeat those mistakes. But at the same time, I think it was really good that I got to go through some of them.
Absolutely.
I crashed and burned a few times, and was able to learn a lot from that.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about earlier, is how, mistakes can be our biggest teacher.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Can't be afraid to make them, because you learn from them, as long as you don't give up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little stick-to-itiveness. I don't think that's really a word.
No, it is. That's the thing.
Yeah, essentially it's like any chance you get to, hopefully starting from a young age, if you know like that's somewhat what you want to do, maybe instead of working a summer job at McDonald's, try and find that summer camp, try and find a guiding service, try and find anything. Like you said, even volunteer if you have to. Maybe you're making like no money, but just getting into it sounds like for you was the way that you just stuck with it.
Yeah.
Was just consistently doing whatever job you could to be in it.
Yeah, well, I was terrible at raising money, so it was just about volunteer work when I was in Colorado. I did do some landscaping on the side, but in the summers we were all in, and yeah, I mean, anytime you can, and go volunteer at a summer camp, they'll probably feed you and put you up. So even though you're not making anything, you're at least eating.
Yeah.
Or let you set up your hammock on the property somewhere.
I mean, one of my best summers was working for like the college that I was doing. You do like camp teams for the college, go out and promote it. This is like even where I met my wife, because she was doing it for her college. That I ended up going to after that, because I was like, hey, you're really pretty. I'm going to go to your college.
Solid college decision.
Yeah, exactly. And before I even
knew... worse reasons to pick your college.
It's a solid basis to pick your college.
I was telling my cousin, I was like, I feel like God's just telling me to go here. And he's like, I think this girl is what's telling you to go here. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a year. I'll give it a year.
Maybe it can be both.
Yeah, maybe it can be both.
Dude, if that was a year between, you absolutely need to make that transfer.
Yeah, and so, I mean...
That's some serious attention span.
Yeah, exactly. I was telling them, I was just like, because I was about to switch over into a counseling program at that time. It was like my sophomore year, and her college it was Ozark Christian College, and her college has a great counseling program. My college just started their counseling program, and I was just like, I think your college would sound a lot cooler. And I met Gary Zustiak, which is like their program director there too, 1 week of camp, and I was like, yeah, this would be awesome. And sadly though, I had like obligations to a church that I was working for, that I was going to come back and work, and my cousin's like, no, you need to go back and like work with them. So that was great, learning experience. But that whole summer of like hardly getting paid anything, like hardly got paid anything at all. They essentially gave us gas money. On the weekends we got like maybe like $50-$20 to pay for food and everything like that if we needed it. Probably not even that much. And then for the most part the camps were just feeding us the whole time, giving us a place to live and shower. And it was like definitely the greatest time. It's definitely easiest to do it when you're young. But even for my wife and I, when we realized, wow, we just got our bachelor degrees, we're potentially going to go get our master's, but we still want that like potential volunteer experience, that's when we grouped up with ACMNP, and just drove out to Yosemite, California, and it's
what
like
an
one
awesome
of the
placement with ACMNP. That's
I know.
Place in Yosemite. That's
they told us,
rad.
they're like, you're not going to like anywhere else if you go to Yosemite first.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
But it was definitely the best thing that we could have done, because being in Yosemite, one of the girls who's going here told me about this place.
Okay.
And so then that's how I knew about this place. And it was the exact program I wanted too for counseling stuff. And she was like, and it's got Red River, and it's got all these other things. And I'm just like, holy cow, like, that's amazing. And so, yeah, I think just getting out there, doing it as much as you can, diving into whatever thing could potentially lead you into that field, you do meet those connections, you do meet those people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the moral of what you're saying, and I totally agree with you, is that, like, this is not necessarily a field where you're going to end up in a great job by sitting on your laptop and just applying for jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you might stumble into one once you've got some great experience, but you got to get that experience first.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's so critical. I mean, I could probably get a job in a lot of these outdoor places now because I've got 20 years of experience, right? They'd be like, why do you want to come work for us? But at the end of the day, when I was first starting out, I couldn't even get a call back, you know?
Right.
So just show up. And you're not going to... People that are hiring in this field probably aren't like making a lot of their great judgments off of a resume anyway. They're like, okay, where's the guy that got all that done today? That guy. Yeah, we want you. That's the way they're thinking. Like,
oh, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's so practical. Every job in this field is so practical and so hands-on and so face-to-face that, like, you're going to get the job through making those connections and the human touch, the human connection, you know,
Absolutely.
than it is through email or, you know, a resume or something like that. You got to get in there and do the work and make yourself, you know, known to them personally as a human being. I feel like that's what happened for you. You know, it's happened for you.
Yeah, thankfully, my wife and my cousin, who was practically my dad at college, both of them are very, like, driven people. They very much think you should have a backup plan, you know. They're like, you should do this. They're very good with discernment. However, my wife said you should get a master's degree. My cousin said you should just go volunteer. Like, you should just go into the field and all that stuff. Luckily, I went with a master's degree because now I can be licensed therapist whenever I do eventually do that stuff. But it still rings true what my cousin said, which was you have to make sure you get all that experience. You have to make sure you get all that stuff because I almost took a volunteer position with a place out in Missouri called Discovery Ministries. And they were the type of people where you could tell it was, yeah, we don't care if you got a fancy degree. We don't care if you've got this fancy, this, that, or the other. We don't care whose kid you are. If you can come out here, shovel manure, and spread it out, if you can come out here and go through the rain with all these junior hires and everything and lead them on a trip, if you can do all these really hard things, then that's what we want. Like, we don't care what your like resume looks like. And so I'm hoping that I can have both. but yeah, I mean, I think that rings so true. I think in our culture, we're getting to a point where we're wondering if college is obsolete or not in some areas of, you know, job placement. Because, yeah, for me, I technically don't need to have my master's degree in marriage and family therapy to do a lot of the counseling type things that you will naturally do as a guide.
Sure.
You know, for people freaking out on a rock wall and you're having to have a crisis moment with them.
Right.
And calm them down before they go buckling themselves out or something.
Yeah. Or helping them meet their character goals for their trip, you know.
Exactly.
Like
and so I think a big hope, what I really love about you all, and what I'm super excited for the university, and what I'm excited for Keegan and I, is to hopefully be able to fuse more education with that outdoor experience and everything so people can have a better grasp on life instead of, like you said, kind of just sitting on a laptop hoping that all these credentials get them somewhere.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing I see with this day and age is, I mean, yeah, obviously, students in our program, there's a certain percentage of the population that's like, so what, you guys play in the woods and call it school? Like, yeah, I get that.
Right,
I'm perfectly willing to take that criticism. I guess my retort to that would be like, yeah, wouldn't you like to be playing in the woods all the time?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the thing that really does matter is it is a field that can be done by a lot of people, but it can be done well, and there are ways to do it well, and there is an academic side to it, but there's also a training side to it, you know. And I'm a liberal arts guy. I work at a liberal arts school. I don't just think college should be there to train people for a job. I think we should be, you know, contributing to the continuation, a continuity of a culture, and things like that. But I also think while we're doing that, we can be training excellent outdoor leaders that are going to be standing out above. You know what, and obviously there's going to be great people that show up to what that ministry you were referring to that just get it. But if you're still not sure, or you just want to make sure that you can improve at it, then further educating yourself. I still don't think it's a completely obsolete bad choice in this day and age. but it's tough to not say that as a liberal arts guy.
Right.
So.
Right.
Well, when we were planning out our LLC, in our mission statement and vision statement, one of our goals is to help reformat education. Because I loved college. I thought being in the dorms, as rowdy as, I work as a custodian at the university, and I'll walk through the dorms sometime, and I'm just like, I was like that? I was like, holy cow, I can't believe I was this irresponsible and everything. Like, why do they let us all live here? Why does this happen?
Whose idea was it to put 500 guys in the same building and lock them in at night?
Decision. Hope that they stay in. But it was definitely one of the best growth periods of my life, having that bonding experience with those guys and coming up together like that. I don't want college to be obsolete. I think it can be amazing. I think it sometimes steers towards obsolete in some areas of, business or whatever else. Not business, but in some areas. And my hope and why I love the university is that I think they are trying to push in a direction that isn't making it feel obsolete. Like you could do this online, but if you actually come get this experience at this university, you're gonna be so much better for it.
Well, that's the difference between Asbury and other universities, because not just academics. It's great academics, but also character development. And I feel like both are necessary. Because when we think of school, our mind immediately jumps to academics. You're learning to read, you're learning to write, you're learning to go into the field that you want to study. We never think character development. We think that's a byproduct of the education. Through being at college and being alone, you develop character. But we don't think of an intentional, character building process that school is going to bring us through, like learning our field. But that is exactly what Asbury does, exactly what the Adventure Leadership Program does. It's academics, it's learning the skills, it's learning the practical side of things, but also developing the whole person as an individual. Right. And both, when put together, that's what creates a productive member of society. That's what creates somebody who's going to go out there and get the job. Not just having the good certifications on the resume. Mm-hmm. That's only half the battle. You have to develop them as a whole. And that's, in our vision statement and mission statement, that's what we want, is for education to move in that direction of not just academics, but academics with developing the entire individual. And I think that Asbury really taught me that, and I think they're setting a good example for other universities.
Making post-millennials awesome. That's really my job.
Yeah.
They're not millennials anymore.
No, it's Gen X now, right?
No, Gen X was before.
Gen Y.
Gen Y now?
I think
Gen
it's
Y?
It'll get a name. It'll get a name
something
eventually.
Like that.
The name,
took a while for millennials.
Yeah, the names don't come around for a while.
No, there is one.
But it'll change because they were calling the millennials Generation IY for a while and all this other stuff. But so depending on different sources, I've seen Gen X ended and the millennials started sometime in the mid 1980 birthday up through birthday in 95 or 96.
Yeah.
But some of them are as late as you had to be as 85. So between 80 and 85 is kind of a gray area. You could be a Gen X or you could be a millennial.
Gotcha.
And then but if you were born in say 1990, you're definitely a millennial.
Yeah, we're millennials.
We don't know what comes after that yet though.
Yeah. I don't know how much longer you want to hang around, but I think one question that I really want to know from that topic is, from you growing up, going to Asbury, seeing your group of guys and girls, your class, your whatever, all the people you grew up with, compared to the people you're seeing now, going into this outdoor field, going into wherever, what do you think is maybe the biggest difference? Because I hear some people complain about millennials or, whoever it is coming up now. I hear some people praising them. What do you think it is that's very different, and what are you hopeful for?
I think part of that, I would say resounds with what we were kind of talking about early on, just the idea of, there is a little bit in our culture in general. I don't know if that's generational or if it's just a cultural shift across the board.
Yeah.
And it's a times thing, but there's definitely, Richard Lou's book is, probably 12 years old now, but, Last Child in the Woods, and just this separation from nature, but also separation from the food economy and from a lot of these other things that people are just unaware of. I think that's happened across the board. Even people that used to know it when they were young are starting to forget. so there's some of that, and we do need the challenging experiences to help people grow. And maybe that's a little bit more pronounced now than it used to be. But there are things, you're right, that are so much more awesome about this generation. This generation is so much more willing to think of an outdoor recreation program as something that's viable and something that they can grow and learn from. 20 years ago, when I was doing this stuff, like, we would have been appalled if someone wanted to teach us how to do it. We wanted to go figure it out. Like, it was a much more, Wild West kind of attitude, independent culture kind of attitude. People were learning to rock climb because they were lucky and they knew a rock climber that would take them out. And now you can learn to rock climb by going to a rock climbing gym. Yeah. But this generation is okay with that. And so that's created a market and a culture where I think things can be done well. I think we're finally at a point where, maybe we're going to stop seeing the outdoors and, like, from people that are in the outdoors because they love it, treating it so poorly.
Yeah.
Because they're not just out there as these rogue individuals. They're like, oh yeah, I wanted to learn to go backpacking, so I did this program, and they happened to teach me leave no trace principles while I was on it too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this generation is far more comfortable with the organized aspects of the outdoor rec field, which obviously is good for all of us sitting here and anybody that wants to work in that field, because that means more of a market. But it's also, in some ways, it's like it's taking ownership and realizing, like, being educated by somebody that does have prior experience really is valuable to me.
Yeah.
And I think that this generation is really open to that and really embraces that. Every generation, we probably always just want to sit there and look at the next one and say, they're lame compared to us. But pretty sure the one before me did the same thing, and the one before them. And we always want to look back at these, like, golden, the good old days, and, like, were they really that good? I don't know.
Right.
I'm still looking forward to tomorrow most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fortunate in that I enjoy my job. So yeah, I'd say pros and cons, but there are definitely differences. Maybe the one thing that really does blow my mind, and this is going to be a little bit snarky toward the current generation, is I see a lot more students, and this isn't just the outdoor recreation, just in general, college students coming in, like, a lot more of their decisions seem to be being made by their parents than by them.
Really?
And I don't know if that's, maybe even, like, where they're choosing to go to school and stuff like that. I don't know if that's the parents' problem or the kids' problem, but it just kind of weirds me out, when a kid comes to visit the university, for example, and, like, they don't get a word in edgewise because their mom or their dad is dominating the conversation. Like, why don't we let this young person decide what's good for them?
Yeah.
This should be a transition point for them to start stepping out and taking responsibility for themselves. But I see a reluctance from the generation above them to let them do that. Or is that a reliance from the younger generation? Maybe we can't separate that out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting observation, though.
Yeah, my wife and I, something I've realized about, like, Ozark when we went there, Asbury, I think it obviously happens with, like, big schools and everything too, like big universities or whatnot, but there is, like, that pride element of smaller schools like this where people leave, like, loving it to death, and they're like, no, like, you have to go back there. In order to be a proper individual, you need to go back to this school. Like, that's what transformed me, it's going to transform you.
Right.
And as I was talking to my wife about it, she comes from a military family where they said, if you're not going to go to college, you're going to go into the military. And I'm having that conversation with my wife as we're thinking about starting a family. Like, what are we going to do with our kids when they get into college? And I wonder if you're like this, or if other people our age are like this, or if people have always been like this in certain cultures, where I just want my kid to dive as deep as possible into the thing that they're just most passionate about, and go crazy with it. If they're, like, super into, like, selling baseball cards, it's just, like, go as deep into that, find a mentor who sells baseball cards or whatever, and like, learn, like, go to school with that guy. Whatever you can do, like, go deep into that. And I don't want college to be obsolete, but I do wonder if more people as we're coming up, are going to think that way too. And I wonder how we can steer that.
Yeah, that comes down to, I think the distinction that you're getting at, to me at least, seems more of a personality distinction than a generational distinction.
Yeah.
There's always going to be parents that have a path that they think their kid has to be on because that's the only right or wrong one, and that's a certain personality type. And there's always going to be parents that want their kid to embrace what makes them happy or what brings them joy or what they're good at. And one of those produces phenomenal athletes or concert violinists that maybe don't even like that hobby.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other one produces people that are probably pretty content with their lives, but maybe aren't on the national or international spotlight. And I mean, I think probably the world's always going to have both, and I'm not going to weigh in on which one I think is better. I personally, kind of like your approach, but I still also think there's a little bit of all of us. We're like, man, I'd like my kids to be into rock climbing, or I'd like my kids to. There's a little bit of us that wants our progeny to sort of love the things that we love.
Yeah.
We want to be able to. Yeah. And I think as long as the mentality is we're giving that to them as a gift, then that's one thing. If the mentality is you have to do this, whether you like it or not, because it's right, then that's a little bit problematic. I mean, that's not unlike, growing up in a Christian household. I think at some point, if you did grow up in a Christian household, like your faith has to become your own, or it's not going to be something that stays with you.
That's right.
So maybe it's the same kind of thing. Like eventually, we've got to let our kids go out and start making their own calls.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because from the personality standpoint, because my parents had that personality. Like my mom had me in soccer as a little kid, and then my dad had me in like flag football when I got into junior high, and then they were like, well, maybe you should go into like tackle football, or maybe you should go into wrestling. Until finally I was like, oh, I don't even like high school sports. I like playing the guitar.
Right.
And then I joined the worship band or something like that, and I finally found it. And, so I guess that would seem true to just a personality and everything, too. Not that that's right or wrong, because if I would have maybe had more structured parents who, like, made me commit to something, maybe I wouldn't have such bad commitment issues right now.
Well, we're all going to have some issue or another.
Yeah, exactly.
It is true.
You have anything else, Keegan?
No, I think that was very informative. I really enjoyed listening to it. It helped me out, Trent. So, thanks for stopping by and talking with us. And sharing a little bit about, where you came from and how you got started in here, and giving us some advice, and everybody advice about what they can do to do what they're passionate about. Because that's what I'm hearing from all of us. That's what it's about, If you're trying to get into this field, it's because you love it. And you want to do something that you love. And so you got to develop yourself and take the steps to be able to do what you love, how you want to. And you might have to start small. You might have to do some grunt work. You might fail a couple of times, but you just got to keep going and learning and moving, and eventually you're going to get there. And, I think that's a very encouraging message, not just for me, but really for anyone that wants to get into the outdoor recreational field. And I'm super glad that we can hopefully encourage somebody with that. So thanks for stopping by, man. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yep.
All right.
Anything else, Nick?
As I heard you do that, I'm like, man, you are totally a teacher. Like, you're such a teacher. You know how to summarize.
He summarized it right there. Packaged it up nicely.
Even just the way you say it, like a public speaking way of saying it. Like, yeah, that was perfect.
Packaged it up nicely. Awesome.
All right, Trent. Well, if you could sign us off just by saying, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Perfect. There it is.
All right.